Good evening and welcome to DoreOnTour. Tonight we're going to be discussing the biggest talking points at Nottingham Forest or as a club. Recently, the season tickets situation, Steve Cooper's job, and also survival chances heading in to the last, 10 or 11 games, I think it is, in the Premier League season for Nottingham Forest. Can they stay in the Premier League? And how will it look for these last remaining games? Now, joining me today is no other than David. Rads, how you doing, my friend? You okay?
I'm good. How are you, Jay?
I'm all good. Ready to be back. That being said, I'm enjoying England winning. Obviously, I prefer.
Yeah.
I'm watching Wales as well. So the good result yesterday against Croatia, which was nice.
Absolutely.
But obviously, great results for England as well, and also England under 21s, where Morgan Gibbs-White was the captain of. So brilliant to see former Forest talent and current Forest talent on show in many different places. And just brilliant to watch internationals anyway, and have a bit of a break from it because Forest has been a little bit stressful recently. And as you'll know, I'm not Dore, I'm Jay. So welcome. I'll be your host tonight because Dore is currently at work. So we're going to be, as I say, discussing big talking points coming out of the City Ground in the last couple of weeks. So just people joining in. Shawizzle. I hope you're doing well, Billy, my friend. Hope you're doing good. Paul, good to see you. Yeah. We'll definitely have to meet up before the Wolves game next week. That'd be great. Sebastian, I hope you're doing well. Rad Dad, good evening, my friend. Danish Red, hope you're okay. Eve, good to see you. I've got your calendar here. Look, Eve, look at this. How amazing is this? Look, big shout out to Amanda Gretton, by the way, because
we've got one of them as well.
Yeah, amazing, aren't they? Yeah. DFibs for grassroots football, raising awareness of an absolutely great cause, and just trying to balance the calendar up so it stays there now. So let's talk about Nottingham Forest. Obviously, a big loss. I would say a big loss, looking at it, that first half in particular, where I thought maybe we could snatch 3 points. But obviously the Forest kind of fan in me kind of said, I don't think you're going to I don't think you're going to get the full 3, but you'd take a point against Newcastle, I would say, top 6 side. What are your thoughts on that loss, obviously, coming on to the international break? It's a sad way to go into the international break. But firstly, your thoughts on that loss and then kind of the impact that the international break will have on Forest motivation going ahead into the final games.
Yeah, it was a good way to go into the international break, as you say. No one wants to lose. And you've got to wait 2 weeks before you play again, albeit against a very, very good team in Newcastle. But it was, I don't want to say it wasn't painful because it certainly was, but it wasn't like too surprising, I suppose, because we didn't play particularly well, in my opinion. So maybe losing was a fair result, but it still hurt nonetheless. And obviously, we've got to make sure we bounce back now with a lot of tough games to come. Every game's tough, of course, in the Premier League. So yeah, I agree with you. It looked like the first half, we could have got what would have been a huge point, maybe even 3. So to throw it away like we did was really frustrating. The same old problems coming back. Obviously, 2 defeats, unfortunately, going into the break is not ideal. But as we were just saying off camera, actually, the Wolves game is a huge opportunity for Forest to try and turn it around again. A much-needed win is due. It's 1 win in 10 now, so we desperately need to get some form going. And Leeds and Villa after that, both away, which doesn't bode well for Forest. But obviously the 2 teams, particularly Leeds, where you could maybe see us getting something from it. We really need to get something from those games if we want to stay in the league. So big opportunities coming up for sure. We've got to learn from our mistakes really there.
Yeah, and I think there is a lot of mistakes, and I'm not going to dig out any players, or I'm certainly not going to dig out Steve Cooper. If I'm not going to dig out anybody, because it's not what I believe in. But I think that one thing that struck me with Forest probably since Man City was the kind of comfortability to just defend, which was during the City game. I thought you played quite defensively. You kind of had those 2 defensive mids, and you thought this is how we're going to sit. Take the point off City, and then you're looking at the next games thinking, well, if you perform like that against City, you're going to go and win loads of games, get loads of points. But the problem was, at City, we got lucky, I thought that we actually played very well, and credit to the lads for playing as well as they did, and Steve Cooper for being as tactically aware as he was against a very good Pep side. But if City took their chances like they should have, and I think many expected them to do so, then it would have been a completely different scoreline, and maybe would have woke us up and warned us of that kind of, kind of getting used to that kind of defensive way of playing. Which, don't get me wrong, there is, there's things that have gone well with it, but I just think we've played too defensively against teams where really, or in fact, every team we've probably played against, where you could just have a bit more bite and be a bit more aggressive, especially against West Ham, where I thought that we allowed them to play their game too much, and you've players like Declan Rice in the midfield, to give him the space that we did was disappointing, really. And it wasn't a great day out at all, I'll tell you that.
No.
But of course, you can turn it around. I think that there's a lot on Twitter, which can be very toxic at times. I still enjoy going on there and having, looking at what people are saying and looking at the various opinions that people have, because obviously it's good to share your opinion, whether you agree with it or not. And I found it really interesting when talking about the last games that so many people were just saying that Forest were down. That was it, just completely finished. Definitely. At the end of the day, a lot of people were saying that 7 games into, last season, when it looked like it was all over and this is it, we're going back to League One. But you've got to have that faith, albeit this is in a very different part of the season, and kind of reminds me of the start that we had to this Premier League campaign. But there's no reason why you can't turn it down. And this is a massive opportunity, this 2-week international break for some of the lads who aren't playing internationally to pair up, get ready, and build that chemistry ahead of a massive game. To see injured lads come back, and also the lads that are on international duty, like Moussa Niakate, to get some game time in the legs and kind of shake off that rust, which I think Moussa kind of had in that game against Newcastle. So I'm actually looking forward to the Wolves game with some optimism. And I know people are worried and nervous. You're always going to be, because it's a huge, as we said, as you mentioned before the stream started, it's a turning point, I think. You win it and things could look very differently in the coming games. But I see this 2-week break as an opportunity. So what are your thoughts on the injured lads coming back? Mainly, I think it's Koyate that seems to be the man that is most likely to come back soon.
Yeah, it's going to be huge, isn't it? I think as much as we can criticise the way Forest have gone about games, albeit in the hardest league in the world, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to lose to teams like, Arsenal, quite a while ago now, United and that. But I do think you've got to look at the situation a bit deeper, look at how many injuries we've had, and it is an excuse. It's a very valid one, though, because when you've got your main striker out for what he was at since January, Awani. So, I think he's been a massive miss, honestly. Like, I know even Awani had a bit of criticism at the start of the season, but I think it was a frustrating one for him because he was just starting to get into his stride. Like, he got that goal against Southampton and then he was ruled out, and it was just really frustrating. So hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. I know he's back in training, which is great. As you mentioned, Cheick Kouyaté, I think we've missed him as well. We've got so many options in midfield, which I think is a blessing for us to have. There was a time where Forest didn't have that at all in midfield or any position, to be honest, really. So I'm looking forward to him coming back. I don't think anyone thought when he signed for us that he'd be as integral as he was, like just the way he holds at the ball and his physicality. I think it's something we've missed. So hopefully he's going to come back. Obviously, Yates is slowly getting back up to speed, which is obviously a massive plus for us. Moussa scored. He didn't score. He played for Senegal. And of course, he played a full 90, which I didn't expect him to do against Newcastle. And as you said, he obviously looked a bit rusty, but for a first game in like 6-7 months, I think he did very well. So, yeah, they're going to be like new signings in ways. These lads coming back into the team. So obviously we're not going to see like Omar Richards, which I don't think we ever will see, maybe. But the likes of Cheick and Taiwo and people like that, getting those back in the mix would be only positive. It could be crucial.
Yeah, and you can only question kind of what Forest would actually look like in terms of league position and as a team. It should injuries have not been as severe or happened in such quantity as they have this season. It's such an interesting thing to kind of think about. Obviously, you've just got to work with what you've got, and that's the difficult thing with Steve Cooper. He's got so many players brought in, But unfortunately, a lot of them have had injury problems. So, I mean, I think every player brought in from Germany has had an injury problem. So, or had numerous. So, it's been a difficult time for Steve Cooper, and obviously, it's a shame that has happened. But there's nothing you can change about that. And now it's just on to the end of the season, really, and working on that. So, looking at some of the comments here, what is the update on the new stand? Is it because of the rowers? I'm pretty sure it is, because in order for them to actually extend the stadium, because they're going to stay on the same ground, they would need the space where the rowing club is. So there hasn't actually been a place to relocate it found yet, as far as I'm aware. So when that happens, then I think it'll be able to happen. But I can imagine there's probably off the field influences, probably such as league position as well, or just the league that you're in, that will affect this. If Forest aren't in the Premier League, I really highly doubt this happening for at least another 2 or so years. But, at the end of the day, football is a business. The Marinakis are businessmen, and they own a business in Nottingham Forest. So, of course, they want to make sure that they're spending money wisely, and then they're making money back on that. So whether people like it or not, that is the situation with the stand. So probably not for a while. Evening, guys. I hope you're doing well, Josh. Good to see you. Loss against Newcastle hurts more because we've thrown away big points in recent games. Yeah, 100%. But all you can do is look forward. All you can do is look forward. Because you don't want to look back too much. It's just important that we stay optimistic, and it's always difficult, because I know it's so difficult to kind of every time you walk into the City Ground have a smile on your face and think we're going to go and smash this. Like, it's so different from the Championship. But if the Premier League was easy, nobody would enjoy it, would they? So this is going to be a rocky ride, but it's going to be exciting. Every football game different, absolutely. Will Yates be ready for the Wolves match? I think so. Obviously whether he's starting or not, I'm not 100% sure, but I think he's getting there now. He's obviously really struggled with fitness, and being off for as long as he was and being as ill as he was, it's always very, very different. Evening, Jay. It's a bit of a. I'm not really aware of this comment made, to be honest. So feel free to PM me on Twitter. I don't really do politics too much on social media unless you're on my private Facebook. So I apologise for that. So yeah, playing an inverted winger up front. Why are people not asking basic questions? Feel free. Me and Rads will be here till 9 o'clock answering these questions. And Kieran, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. I would say that actually having Dore on here will be the dream trio. So yeah, a bit of a legend. But Dore, as I say, it worked tonight. So I hope you're well, Dore. And make sure if you want to get your thoughts heard as well, you can actually join us. Dore's pinned a link into the comments on YouTube. Jump in, have a chat with me and Rads for 3 or 4 minutes, and we'd be happy to answer your questions and have a quick chat about Forest. This show is about you and getting your opinions and letting us know what you think on what we're talking about. Now, Rads, yes. Let's go to the big debate, which has obviously taken over Twitter this week. And you'll probably know this better than I do, because I'm on a work reason when I'm at Forest. But as a fan, what are your thoughts on the increase in season ticket prices? Do you think it's justified? And what sort of a effect do you think that's going to have on attendance next season?
Yeah, it's a big subject, really. Quite a big backlash on Twitter, as we say. I think a lot of it was justified, but I think it has to be said as well. It's not a surprise to see an increase. I think with all the things that are going on in the world, that was always going to happen. And then just as a club, the fact we're in the Premier League, I think it was always going to end up going up. But I do think a lot of people like of my age, that would have been a youth, is the ones that are going to be the most frustrated by it, because of obviously they've changed the age bracket. And that's the only thing I find frustrating from my point of view, because obviously, for instance, the last 2 seasons, I would have been in that group of people. And obviously you get a reduction for that. And I don't mind having to pay more. I don't think anyone really would do, but the fact that it is quite a major increase from what it would have been 190 next season to like £600, it's a massive rise. And I think when it comes to attendances, I don't think it will have a huge impact. I think a lot of people will still do it for the love of the club and loyalty. But it's frustrating from our point of view to see that, particularly like that age bracket. But in general, it's not really a shock to anyone that it's gone up. And ultimately, I suppose you've got to think about it in the bigger picture that we're still one of the cheapest season tickets in the league, and it is going to go to a good cause, our football club. So, yeah, can't be too negative about it. I think there's lots of roads you could go down with it, really. But yeah, it is what it is, really.
Well, I think I saw a table saying that we were second cheapest after Brentford, and Brentford is just I can't even describe Brentford, just the way that they're run. I think it's incredible. But the second cheapest, but I think it's more the jump still, despite it being the second cheapest. It's like, well, if it was more expensive, there'd just be even more backlash, because obviously, as Jem says, and this has been a massive talking point. And obviously, I don't, as I say, I don't have the same situation, but unfair on students, obviously with that huge increase. I mean, I don't know what it is, like 400% or something that I'd seen.
Yeah.
It's a massive jump. But as you said, it's going to go towards investing in the club, and a lot of money's been spent. So is it justified enough to raise that much money, to increase the price of the ticket? Sorry.
I mean, probably not in terms of the jump. I mean, I saw a lot of that angry backlash. I was a bit miffed about it when I first saw it, if I'm honest. But, I do kind of feel like there should have been some kind of more, I don't know what the word is, it kind of should have been a less steep of a jump in one go. Because as we say, it's like a 300% increase in price. It is a big jump. And, I've seen some people being a bit blunt saying, well, you are adults now, which is true, but still, it is a big increase in terms of how much you've got to pay to go and watch your football club. And I think another thing people have said as well is the fact that we could be in the Championship as well. Like, I'll still go and watch us in the Championship, or even lower if we had to go to those depths, which hopefully we never will. But, it's not quite the same, is it? Paying like £600 to go and watch Forest v Rotherham compared to Forest v Man City. No disrespect to those clubs, but yeah, I'm still looking forward to next season. I'll still be there, but it is what it is, isn't it? It's going to happen.
Yeah, all I can say is on kind of like an impartial point is that I do hope that people can still go. I'd be really upset to see someone not be able to go because they can't afford it, and obviously at the moment it's an incredibly difficult time, and not just for students, of course, which I know this affects greatly, as Jade and Jem have pointed out. But of course, the whole country is struggling with various issues with the cost of living. So it's an incredibly difficult time. It's unfortunate that it's had to be raised, but of course, everything does come at a price, and a lot of money's been spent on and off the field this summer and winter and everything. So whatever happens, I hope it doesn't divide the fan base, because at the end of the day, we're all Forest fans, and I know that there's people going and arguing with each other over the situation. And look, everybody has their own personal situation. Some people can afford it, some people don't. Don't shame each other. If you don't like something that someone said, feel free to have your opinion, but just remember, we're all Forest fans at the end of the day, and all that matters is that everybody gets that opportunity to go and watch at the City Ground, because I know people, and I see people actually outside the ground that can't get tickets every week and just sit there and listen. And I know how grateful they would be. So, just it's a privileged position to be able to go and watch Forest every week. And I just hope that people can still go and watch. And if they can't, I hope that somebody that has wanted that opportunity for a while gets that opportunity. And I really hope that people do keep going watching Forest, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what league you're in. It's just about supporting the team that you love at the end of the day, whether that's Saturday League or Premier League. So just enjoy it, cherish every moment, and don't fall out with each other. We all support the same club. We all wear red, so it's all good. But I don't want to get too negative on it, because there is actually positive things to talk about. But before we go on to the positive things, D Chapo wants to know our going down 3. Now, it's going to be positive because I'm not going to put Forest in it. I don't think you can bet against your own team. I think that's fair to say. Do I put you on the spot, Rads? Yeah, go on then. What are your bottom 3? What is your going down 3 this season in the Premier League?
That's a difficult question regardless of the season, but this season is probably the hardest it's ever been to call.
There's 8 teams that could go down. 12th down could all go down.
Yeah. It's just I mean, it's great, isn't it, from an entertainment point of view? You don't want to be in it from a football point of view, but from a neutral, it's thrilling to watch. And it's going to be thrilling to watch for the rest of the season, I'm sure. But I mean, actually, I did a video recently actually trying to work it out by predicting all the scores, and I had Leeds, Southampton, and Bournemouth. But since I did that, Leeds go and beat Wolves 4-2. So I'm thinking, hang on a minute, could Leeds survive? And like Bournemouth have been a bit unlucky. They nearly got an incredible result at Arsenal. Then they go and lose to obviously Villa and that. So then they also beat Liverpool. So it's very tough to call. I mean, I think Everton, if they have that points deduction or if they do get in trouble, then it could be their time. But I don't think anyone's out of it. I think Southampton, even though they've probably looked the weakest at times, they've drawn the last two against United and Spurs. So anything's possible. And I wouldn't want to bet against Forest. I know there'd be reasons to say we'd get relegated, but I still have more than enough optimism and belief. And I'm not just being biased. Like, I think I've seen enough to see that we can do it. We've had a bit of a decline recently, but it was never, ever going to be plain sailing. If anyone thought it was going to be easy, then, it never was. So, as we've been saying, the Wolves game, the Southampton game coming up, those games in particular. And obviously, we've been awful on the road overall, but the games like Palace and Leeds are gigantic opportunities for us. So there's more than enough chances for us to get points. But for me, I think whoever goes down are going to feel really hard done by. But I'd probably say Southampton and Bournemouth, and then the other one is really tough to call. Like, I still worry about Everton, and I do feel we'll be okay. But yeah,
it's a hard call. I think Everton might just be okay because I know that there's a lot of concern over the FFP breach, which they breached almost 4 times over.
Wow.
Yeah, they I think it was they lost something like 350 million when you're only allowed to lose just over 100. So they've lost a lot of money. Now, I don't think they'll get the points deduction this season. I think it would be next season. If they get it next season, I can see them getting relegated. And obviously you're going to have incredible budget measures put in order to stop any further losses, and you'll be overseeing a lot. So I think they're going to struggle, but obviously, I think in my opinion, I think they might just stay up. I've just got that feeling they're just going to play absolutely nice football for the last 10 games or something. And I think any team would take that though. I would take terrible football that wins you or gets you points. So if Everton's can get that, then
right now it's just about results, isn't it? It's not really the style of play. I know we'd all like to watch flashy football, but if we win every game for the rest of the season 1-0, I'd take it because it would mean be safe. I suppose football's more about entertainment, but end of the day, it's also results that are most important. So, especially at this stage of the season, just want to get results, get points on the board. And with Everton, I do feel they probably will survive, but it's going to be really close,
It's going to be. Well, your dad says that he thinks it'll actually be Southampton, Bournemouth and Everton. I'd be inclined to agree with the first two, but I'm going to chuck Crystal Palace into that bracket. I think that they've really struggled. They're not. And they've got a lot of problems going into the summer as well, even if they do stay up. You've got Zaha, who's going to leave on a free. They're going to get no money for him at all. It's replacing him. I don't think he would sign that contract renewal, even though they're going to offer him absolutely incredible amounts of money. To answer this question, though, I think that people are... I know how people feel about the Roy Hodgson appointment. The reason I actually think that it could be positive is because he knows the team. He might have not guided them, might have not have guided them to where they want to be out of that kind of 14th place where they seem to have just been stuck for the last few seasons. But they weren't going to get relegated under his watch. And I do kind of now think maybe they could get relegated. But Roy Hodgson does know the team. He does know the club. But it's just a case of whether he can play the right football now. So I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on it because there's good things to that appointment and there's bad things. And I know people always go, well, he's 75 and, you know, he can't do this or he can't do that. But if he knows the team and he knows what to do and as we say, plays the football that gets results, that's really all that matters. So I don't know. I still think that Crystal Palace, you know, might fall into that bottom three. But as Dave said, I think it's that third spot is incredibly tough to call. So that's kind of our bottom threes for you all, if that made sense to you all. And now let's talk about Steve Cooper then, because he's a name that obviously we've all kind of you wouldn't not smile without saying the name Steve Cooper. It's a name that we've kind of lauded and appreciated for so long, and he's changed Forest as a club. And he's definitely brought the fan base back together now. But it all seems to be a bit tense. And recently he's been, I don't know, there's just something about it that seems out of character about the football. It's obviously so defensive at the moment. But he did try and do something a little bit different at Newcastle, something I didn't really expect. But will it be enough to keep Forest up in these next, 10 or so games, David? And, you know, Are you Steve Cooper in?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's I get why people criticise him at times. You know, I think it's wrong if we said we couldn't criticise him or anyone. You know, no matter how connected you are. You know, I think we'll all applaud Joe Wall, for instance, for what he's done for the club, how long he's been here. But I think we could all admit that he's been a struggle at times this season. So, you know, that's just another example. But when it comes to Cooper, you know, I can't, like you say, I can't help not but think about him positively. You know, that he's done things with this club that I think even fans that have seen us in European football in the past never would have foreseen it happening. Like, especially the season that he joined, you know, for how, you know, rock bottom we were. The worst I'd seen Forest for a long time. So, yeah, the fact that we got promoted in the same season, it is a miracle, and it's not going to happen many more times. Like, it's something that hasn't happened much at all down the years. So because of that, it's kind of difficult to criticise him. But yeah, for me, I would keep him for sure. I think he's got enough in him. I think he's learned the league as he goes along. It's an incredibly tough task for him to survive. And, you know, do it while learning a new squad. And obviously, I think we can't really say that's an excuse anymore. You know, he's known the squad for 26-7 matches now. So I think that was more of a case at the start of the season. But yeah, there are negatives to him, as we say. Some of his substitutions and team selections. And I think in terms of the style of play, obviously, like we said, it doesn't particularly matter unless we get results. But right now, we haven't been getting so many results, so it's kind of more of a concern. Obviously, the away form is dreadful, and you know we have to find a way of solving that in any way. Honestly, but yeah, quite often we're too defensive and too, you know, seem really scared to like attack, or you know, we don't really know how to in ways, which sounds ridiculous, but you know, and then sticking to certain players. Like I think he kind of persevered with Freuler for too long, and I still think Freuler can be useful for us, but he is someone that probably stayed in the team a bit too long. So yeah, it's a difficult one. You know, I will back Cooper right to the very end, but there are reasons why I don't understand when people criticise him. You know, like against Newcastle, he brought Gustavo Scarpa on right at the end when the game was lost, and seemingly he was playing in defence, which was something that baffled me. So, yeah, to sum it up, really, he does make some strange decisions, but he's done some incredible things. Even, you know, just a few weeks ago against Man City, you know, he got us a point no one would have foreseen to happen. So, if we can just keep picking up points like that, or 3 points preferably, then I think we'll be fine.
It's an incredibly difficult task, as you say, and I really like Steve Cooper, and I think I owe Steve Cooper a massive debt actually on a personal level, because you know, just the way that he's structured the club, and you know the way he's just got us to the Premier League, which is, I think, he's given every every YouTuber, okay, I'm going to say this, every YouTuber or person in the media has been given a boost by Premier League status. Of course, it makes my love for Steve Cooper even more extensive. But at the same time, it is, we also have the right to have our say on what we think about Steve Cooper and recent selections. And I can imagine that if you were to speak to him and you mentioned it, I don't think he'd be angry at you. I think he's a very honest person, and he's probably already made this assessment to himself anyway. So, this is, at the end of the day, it's okay to have your opinion on Forest and definitely Steve Cooper. And I actually think he'd appreciate that if people did. Obviously, there's a difference between an opinion and just outright attacking someone. But I think that Steve Cooper's got enough in him as well. I agree. I think that Steve Cooper is someone who, during difficult times, can persevere and bring the best out of us. Of course, it's difficult. You shouldn't underestimate your opponents. You've got Wolves, who, yes, come off a couple of difficult games, but at the end of the day are a very good side. And I think they've got Mateus Nunes back. I think they overturned his red card after an appeal. So, they've got Johnny out, but they've got arguably one of the Premier League's better midfielders available, holding midfielder, I think he is. So he's going to present issues for Forest. He's going to make it difficult. You've got players like Ruben Neves, and that's just naming two players, So I really like Ait Nouri, I think his name is. I think he's brilliant, super, super quick, and he really made it difficult for us at the City Ground and at Molineux. So, big players in that Wolves side, and obviously Aston Villa, incredible form. Douglas Luiz, and the lad up front as well. I always forget his name. Watkins, who I think could have got a call up for England, but I agree. I think they're all brilliant. But there was once a time where I enjoyed watching teams like Wolves and Aston Villa, but now you've really, really got to hate them. You've really got to hate them as a player, as a fan, as a fan. I'll say whatever I like Villa or whatever every other game, but as soon as we play them, I hate them. You know what I mean? I don't like Wolves anyway after that cup game, but the players just seem to lack that mentality. And I'm not saying you've got to hate them like fans do. It's a different thing. It's a profession. Obviously, they're professionals, but you've got to have that hunger, and it's something we've struggled with. And I think that does come from a couple of games that were just bad performances. And every team has those days, and unfortunately, that mentality's carried on. Times when they've had a bit of bad luck. For example, that foul leading up to the Everton goal that obviously they scored, disappointing. But a lot of Forest fans will mark the referee's mistakes, and it always seems to be about the referee's bad performance rather than actually going, hold on a minute, we've had a bad game, we didn't take our opportunities enough, we were poor, and we haven't got any link-up play in the midfield to the attack, and we've struggled because we give the ball away so much. So in my opinion, I think that let's look at the team to go out against Wolves, because this is going to be difficult. Would you like to know my starting 11 right now, if I could do it?
Yeah, go for it. I'm interested in this.
Feeling kind of nervous now, Rad. So I'm going to go Navas in goal, because I'm assuming that Henderson's not going to be back yet. I think he's got another couple of weeks. I'm going to go back for... It's going to be for me, Aurier, Lodi, and I'm kind of torn on Niakate because he's had that game time with Senegal. So I don't know if I want. I might put Musa in, but I think I'm going to go for Worrell, Felipe, and Lodi and Aurier as the back four. In the midfield, though, I'm going to have Mangala, Yates, and Danilo. I'd like something a little bit different, or perhaps Scarpa or Danilo, but I think I'm going to go for those three. And then up front, I'm going to go for Gibbs White, Johnson if he's fit, which I believe he will be, and Surridge, because I don't see Taiwo being back. So it's going to be incredibly difficult. But what's your thoughts on that lineup? Have you got an idea of your starting 11 for that game against Wolves?
Yeah, honestly, when it comes to Surridge, I'm happy you picked him, honestly, because I'm pleased people continue to stick by him, because I feel, he's not even our best striker, let alone one of the best strikers in the Prem, but he's someone that I feel we have really underused, honestly. And I know he had that poor game at Blackpool, but everyone did. So I don't become too critical for that. But other than that, I think every time that Surridge has played, he's played really well. So, and this is just in cameos, really. He's only played one Premier League game this season from the start. So, yeah, I'll go with that attack. In terms of the midfield, I'd definitely pick Yates if he's fit. I would like to see Danilo get another start. I think he's done well whenever he's played. He's obviously not really had that many chances. I think the third one's a really interesting pick, though. Do you stick with Shelvey? I probably wouldn't, in my opinion. I'd like to see Kouyaté there when he's fit.
Yeah.
If I'm honest. Mangala's someone we have underused at times, but then again, he's also had some worrying performances, like he wasn't the best against Spurs. From what I heard, I didn't really see that game in too much depth. But yeah, I wouldn't mind Mangala playing, if I'm honest. Like, he played for Belgium the other day and he did pretty well, from what I heard. So yeah, I think if he can play for Belgium, who I know that are on a bit of a decline at the moment, Belgium, they're still a top nation. Then I'm sure he can do a job for us. I know Freuler's a bit of a controversial topic, whether we pick him or not. Do we put Scarpa in there, to get a bit of attacking side to it? But I'm not sure that I want to see Scarpa in the actual midfield. I think he should be a bit further forward. So I'd actually agree with that midfield and defence. So I like the sound of that.
I think it's in it. Obviously, I'm not Steve Cooper, so I don't see him 6 days a week. But for me, I don't think that Ayew is really a starter for me. I think he's someone that can go on maybe 70 minutes in and, go and kind of use that, because he has, got a good pace and he's okay on the ball. I just don't think he's a starter. I think someone like Sam needs a bit more game time, and I really like Sam. And I think that a bad performance against Blackpool has basically cost him his season with many fans, because, at the end of the day, there was more players on that pitch. And yes, Surridge did miss a couple of chances and it was devastating. But when are you going to kind of learn to let it go and just get on with the season? Because at the end of the day, we're out of that cup. We got to the semi-finals of another cup. And, at the end of the day, Surridge nearly scored a goal against Man United for one of those fixtures. And Surridge, I'm pretty sure one of the last times he played was against Bournemouth. And he, not the last time, but one of, he scored, and I remember being down there thanking him so much that I just travelled for 4 hours and at least got a point out of Bournemouth, who are an incredibly tricky side and have got major attacking force. Philip Billing is amazing and Jadon Anthony is amazing. But this is a question that a lot of people are asking Danish Red. What have you seen in Surridge that warrants a place in the starting lineup? But then I would ask you this then. What has Chris Wood done that warrants a start every week? What has Andre Ayew done that warrants a start every week? And what other options have you got? Because you can't play Taiwo. I don't think it works I don't think that Chris Wood works that well with Brennan and Morgan Gibbs-White. I think there's a better chemistry between Surridge, Gibbs-White and Johnson. I just don't think it works that well together. So I would argue that although you have a good point, why do the other two warrant starts? And what other options have you got? That's my question to you, Danish Red. But thank you for putting in your questions. And I say you can join us. We're going to get Mark on in just a moment, but I'm just going to answer these two questions. First, we're on till 9 o'clock. Jem, Mangala and Danilo together is super risky, as both lose the ball a lot at present. Perhaps, and this is another thing, obviously there is that struggle. But I would say that, given a bit more game time, I think they can learn. I don't think it's just a characteristic that a footballer will carry forever. The lack of game time certainly doesn't help their confidence, which I can imagine is down a part of that. So I would try it one time. I would try it, but it's, obviously everybody, opinions, etc. It's a difficult choice for Cooper to make. If we don't change our coach, then maybe we need to bring in an assistant to help with the new ideas and confidence boosting like Man U did when they brought in Benny McCarthy. Interesting stuff. Obviously, you've lost a massive personality in the changing rooms in Stephen Reid leaving, which I actually do think has had a profound impact. And we're going to ask Mark about this in just a moment. But Stephen Reid leaving has kind of left a bit of a void, because Stephen Reid did a lot of stuff off the pitch in terms of mental health for Forest players. Obviously, he's a mental health coach. He does a lot of work in football clubs now, but I think he kind of helped with the confidence of Forest players, even at the lowest points of the season, and was massive massive in Steve Cooper's the kind of the back room. So it's a shame that we lost him. But Mark, what kind of well, good evening first of all. Welcome to the show. I hope you're doing well.
How you doing, fellas?
You're doing good. Good to see you. What sort of impact do you think that Stephen Reid leaving has had? And to kind of answer Fabian's question, do you think that Forest need to bring in another coach perhaps alongside Steve Cooper, or do you think they're all okay how they are?
Well, I think Stephen Reid was obviously we know what happened. We know what happened last season. He was but we've got to remember one thing here. He wasn't Cooper's guy, but they obviously hit it off. I suppose they're two really good guys, and luckily they both see the game the same way. So that really worked out well. But the only thing I would say, I listened to Yates's these new podcasts that they're doing, the Forest podcasts that they're doing, and one thing that Yatesy said was that when Cooper came over, he said his backroom staff, he said they were fantastic. He said all the people he's got working with were fantastic. So I don't know really. We lost anything? Are we missing anything? We could be better off. I mean, we've got to remember. We know too well now that being in this league is a totally different animal from what we was in last season. We can't compare it. We can't compare it to the Championship. We know we can't. We know how hard it is. We know how difficult. And look, at the end of the day, I've been saying, I've been on with you before, and Ben and Des. And the thing about it is, I still believe we are punching. We are punching above where we should be. Fans are getting frustrated because the performances are not there. But we have got a lot of things that have gone against us and have gone against Cooper. I mean, let's face it, if we could pick our first 11, I think there would be like at least 3 or 4 players that have been injured long term that would be straight in there in the 11. And we're that's what we're up against. And unfortunately, the one thing about the Premier League and all the top teams is they have like for like players. I mean, we're lucky. We've got Ryan Yates. I mean, he's had such a bashing, Ryan Yates, and I think when you really watch Ryan Yates and what he does on the pitch, some supporters used to go, "Oh, what does he do? He's not pinging the ball 30, 40 yards." He's not that sort of player. He takes the pressure off. He's such a clever footballer. He's so fit. I mean, we know that we lack energy in the midfield, but he makes such a difference in the few minutes that he's been on the pitch. We have missed him badly. And I know that Manchester City will have a Gundogan or whatever his name is. They'll have one of him, but then they'll have somebody else. If he's out, somebody to replace him. They've got like for like swaps. We only have one of them type players, and that's why it's so tough. We have to have, at least 13 or 14 of the players that we would want starting to be available, and we know that hasn't been the case. And the thing is, they're not even short-term injuries; they're long-term injuries. It's. I mean, we have to be honest, don't we? We have to. The trouble is, we've all got short. We can all have, or supporters in general can have short-term memories, and we have to look at the bigger picture sometimes. And I'm not a Cooper sympathiser. I see what he brings to the table. The thing about it is, the one thing with football clubs, look at it, he was odds-on favourite to be the first man sacked. And he's still there. And when you lose the dressing room and the players are gone, then you've had it. But we know that doesn't seem... I believe, I don't know because we're not at the training ground, but I think them players, okay, we've hit a bit of a dip, but I believe them players are still on the side with him. I don't know what you guys think. I mean, do you see it that way as well? I don't think I think you're two positive lads as well. I mean, I'm not what they call them, happy clappers and things like that. But you can all see, it's quite clear that Cooper's well respected in what he does. The information he gives out. Okay, sometimes we might look at. I mean, let's look at the Newcastle game. I was there that evening, and when we saw that team sheet come out, I was looking at it. I was thinking, you know what? That's a brave formation because we got like 4 forward-thinking players on the pitch here, and then we've got the 2 behind them in Shelvey and who was it? Yatesy started, didn't he? we had Yatesy and we had Shelvey, and then we had the 4 lads in front. And I thought that's a real brave. He's going for it. He's not sitting back and flooding the midfield and just leaving one up front and just trying to contain them. Maybe, who knows? Maybe that would have been a better thing to do on the evening. But he's been accused of being negative in his tactics. But we were obviously going for it that evening. But you're playing against. We've got to be realistic, right? The fans are saying that this is a must-win game. We're playing against Newcastle United, who are completely different to last season, who should, and I hope they do, get Champions League football because they deserve it, because just based on where they are now. And we're expected to win that game at home against Newcastle United. A draw, we were 2 minutes away from getting a draw. And I know that we rode our luck at times, but we were 2 minutes away from getting a draw. And let's remember as well, I spoke about Yatesy just then. Yatesy, losing him again at the point that we lost him, if we'd have stayed on the pitch, we might have got the draw. We might have even got nicked a win in the end if it had been tight at the end. I'm not saying everything depends on him, but when we lose him, we know what a difference it is.
Well, I think you're right, and I think as obviously we've lost, the injured lads would have made a huge difference. And as we were saying earlier in the stream, it's like imagining Forest season if we had actually had a good injury record. And in fact, I just want to mention actually a little bit off this. Obviously, Forest playing Leeds in just a week and a half, and Willie Gnonto's gone off injured for Italy tonight. So I don't know what the situation is there. It's a huge blow for Leeds, but anyway, I just thought I'd mention it. But back to what you were saying, I do agree, and I think that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be optimistic about Forest, but of course you do have to see, every other side of it, and you have to be honest in what you're saying, because at the end of the day, it'd be naive to say that we've played well and we've been unlucky, because we haven't really, in my opinion. And Newcastle, I think everybody would have taken a point, and we were so close. And I really feel for Moussa Niakhaté, because it's such a disappointing way to give away a goal, and you could tell that he was really upset about it. So it's a real shame. But let's dig a little bit deeper into Ryan.
Can I just say one thing? Sorry, you were saying on the Niakhaté thing. I just want to add something. And I don't know if you thought it at the time. The one thing that really disappointed me about Niakhaté on the night was them pink boots.
Oh, they were bright. Yeah, they were bright.
Oh, he can't be wearing football boots like that. I mean, I'm old-fashioned. Football boots have got to be black. But he's wearing
that's a sign of something, though, Mark.
Baby pink boots. Maybe he's really confident. And you know what I was thinking? Maybe he's trying to put off their striker because he's going to keep looking at his boots or something. I mean, I don't know.
Blacked out boots are actually a sign of ending your sponsorship with a company now. That's why it's so rarely seen, blacked out boots, which is interesting. But I think pink at the other end of the scale might have been a bit too far. But fair play to him. I've had some interesting boots myself. Usually yellow, I think, is probably the most crazy I've gone, but never baby pink. We might have to have a debate about that. A debate about boot colours.
I just kept looking at them boots when he was on the pitch. I was pleased that he was playing, but I kept looking at them boots.
Maybe it's a tactic, though, Mark. Maybe he's trying to distract the player when they're making that run. Maybe it's a tactical thing. But the last 10 minutes of the show, let's talk a little bit about Ryan Yates and the impact that he's going to have. Now, Rads, obviously, you've been watching, the Forest games. What impact do you think Ryan Yates will have for the rest of the season, of providing he's fit? What impact do you think he's going to have? And in particular, what impact do you think he'll have against Wolves?
I mean, I'm someone that really sticks up for Yatesy. Even I think at times, yes, okay, maybe he has deserved criticism, but people have gone way too far with it, in my opinion, at times. And I think we've seen since he's come back just how much we've missed him and how important he is to how he play. Just the way he goes about his game, the physicality of him, the fitness of him, the drive he offers, the leadership, everything. I just think it adds so much. It just suddenly, that Everton game, for instance, when he came on, we looked the best we'd looked all game as soon as he came onto the pitch. And you just, this is a lad that had been out for like 2 months with illness, and he didn't really look it. So I just think that alone. And I know he came off the bench against Spurs, and he started against Newcastle, and again it was more of the same. I think we've really missed him since he since he got out injured. So yeah, I'm a massive fan of Yates. He's a local lad, but he's also one of our most important players without a doubt. He knows the club inside out. He can teach all the new lads, all the players that came in the summer at this stage, what Forest is all about. Just give him some advice. And he's still a young lad, he's not like in his 30s. He's still got a long way to go. He's only going to continue to get better. So to have all those attributes already, I think is so good. It's so good to see. And, like we were just saying there, when we don't have Yates, for instance, we haven't really got anyone else to come in and match him.
It really shows up. Yeah, it really shows up, doesn't it?
Yeah, and this is why it's hard. It's harsh for us to compete and expect us to compete with the real top sides all the time. If we lose just one player, and it just that makes us crumble. Like that. No wonder we're not at the top end. We never were going to be. But
no. And this is where we Sorry.
Yeah, no. So I was going to come on to you, Mark, because I was going to ask ask you about the mentality that he possesses, actually, because there's obviously physically, he's very good on the pitch and he steadies the team, steadies the ship, if you like, and he is the captain for me. He's Mr. Nottingham Forest. But Mark, what impact do you think his mentality has on the squad? Because it obviously irradiates onto all the players. They just seem a bit more calm with him, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely captain material. I mean, he has stepped in. I think that day he was captain that day, wasn't he? Yeah, because Worrell wasn't on the pitch, so he took the captain's armband, and he's got fantastic. When you've got people like Gary Brazil saying, if the academy lads had a pint of his blood, they could all drink it and they could turn into him. That's a massive credit to the kid that he's got something. What he lacks in abilities, he makes up in other ways. And when we played Everton, I was at the Everton game as well. You could clearly see he obviously. I know he wasn't there and didn't play. He came on, because he set up Jono's goal. But you could see the way we play, we need the energy. We need the energy in the middle of the park. And they had Anana, or whatever his name is, Gay or whatever his name is. They had him, and I think there was one other in there, but they had loads of energy. Damari Gray up front, they have loads of energy in there, and it's very evident the way we play. We need a player like that. And I know football's not, football is everyone's looking at what you're doing with the ball, but we're going to be a team of attrition this season, and to get us over the line, and it's going to be when we are in the league. All these fans on Twitter going bananas about, at the end of the day, we was always going to be in a dogfight. At the end of the season. This is where we were going to. This is where we're meant to be. I would be more upset and alarmed if I was a West Ham supporter or an Everton supporter, because they don't see themselves down there. Especially West. I know Everton were there last season, but especially West Ham, they don't see themselves being in a dogfight. And Leicester were there as well. They don't see us being down there. They're in a worse situation. I know that two of them are below us, but I think all three of them below us. I can't remember now. But they're in a worse situation than what we are. They shouldn't be where we are and underneath us. With what we've had to go, they've got a great squad. I mean, if Everton had Calvert-Lewin fit all season, they would be nowhere near that. They can't score any goals. We know that. They nicked the odd 1-0 win, and they're quite tight at the back. But I would be more alarmed if I was a supporter of one of them clubs. More alarmed than what we are. We was always going to be in a dogfight, and we've got 11 games left. And Wolves is a huge game on Saturday. We all know that. We just can't afford to lose that game. Even if we get a draw, we can't afford to lose it. We just need to get some sort of form going. And hopefully the lads that are still playing internationals come back, and they come back fit. And as you say, the Leeds guys got injured. I mean, you don't wish any player to get injured.
No.
But I mean, and obviously Everton might be up. It's looking like FFP's after them. So how that's going to work out, I don't know. Whether they would get a point deduction now at the end of this season, I don't know. Now from now onwards, I don't know. I mean, that would be that would be just hard luck. But if it happens, it happens. I mean, to the detriment of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's that looming over. I still think it'll happen next season. But if it does happen this season, then that is an incredibly unfortunate situation. And obviously, I know that we're in as I said to David at the moment, I hate every other football club that isn't Forest because you just want us to stay up, and that's the mentality you possess as a fan anyway. In my job, I've got to be impartial, but I like Sean Dyche, and it would be unfortunate for him to inherit a situation like that. But that is football, unfortunately. And he's been in some situations financially as a manager with other clubs. So, but we can only focus on ourselves. And as you say, I think Yates is just a brilliant player, as I mentioned earlier. He steadies the ship. He's got that brilliant attitude. He's so mature. I think as someone mentioned, I think it might have been actually Dino that mentioned it, and it was a good point. We've spent a lot of money. And I think, I don't think you can call them rubbish, but, there's been some recruitment signings that we've made that probably haven't been the greatest and haven't worked out. But at the end of the day, the academy is always the most important, and they're the boys that are going to be the most loyal. And, you look at Worrell, you look at Yatesy, you look at Jono, they've all come through that academy system, and you've got some brilliant young guys coming through. I mean, Jamie McDonnell playing for Northern Ireland. I think it's Northern Ireland. It might be Southern. I can't remember. Dale Taylor. You've got Aaron Donnelly, for example, who's doing an absolutely cracking job at Port Vale. Riley Harbottle. There's so many players that are coming through that system, and you've just got to cherish it. You've just got to cherish it. And I just think that Gary Brazil deserves so much. So much congratulations for the work that he's done, and it's really positively benefiting us now. And it would be incredibly difficult to see where Forest would be without someone like Ryan Yates or without someone like Brennan Johnson. And both of them are destined to go on to big things. And of course, as Forest fans, you've got to be selfish and say, I want them to stay with us forever and just keep giving us this joy. But
can I just have one thing, Jay? Yeah. Just have one thing to add. Just one quick thing that I wanted to add to that. Do you know, I was thinking today, Brennan Johnson, it would be so tragic if the worst thing happened and we did get relegated, because he would definitely get sold in the summer. There's no way he would be with us next season. I can't see that. He would definitely get sold. And I think, for a lot of these young players that we've got, even Yatesy, the experience this season will make them. They'll have another. I reckon they'll have another 10% in them, 15% in them next season for the experience of playing in the Premier League. And to see Jono, he has done well this season. You can see him rapidly improving. And next season and the season after that, he is going to be so much a better player. And if he's not with us and we're looking at him from the Championship, doing it for somebody else, it's going to be so upsetting. So we're obviously keeping everything crossed because we want to stay in there again next season. But that would be tragic to see him doing really well at Brentford or something like that, because he's going to get better. His improvement's it's been rapid anyway, and he's going to improve again next season and the season after that. And we want it to be with us,
Yeah, and do you know what? And I don't actually think that if we stay up, I think he stays. I think he loves Forest. He's a Forest fan. He loves Nottingham. His family are in Nottingham. His friends are in Nottingham. At the moment, I can't imagine he'd have too much desire to go. And to be honest, I don't even want to think of the hypotheticals. So all I'm going to say on that is he's got a bright future ahead of him. I'm so proud of him for what he's doing at Forest, and also for a lot of people that doubted him, it's great to see their minds also changed, because I'm not going to go and say, well, if you doubted him, you're not a real Forest fan, because at the end of the day, you can change your mind. And, players, had a difficult start to the season like Brennan did. But just that injection of confidence that he needed, that boost, it was all that he needed. He's always had that ability. So I'm just so happy for him. But we are approaching the 9 o'clock time. So we are going to do some score predictions. I wish I'd have like a little bit of audio to play, some sort of like quiz theme tune or something like that before I said that. But we are going to do some score predictions. Now, I don't just want your score for the Wolves game, and I'm sure Dor will bring you a preview at some point, but I want to get some in whilst we're here. I don't just want a score. I want scorers, and I want your predicted man of the match. Bit of a different one there. And also, we'll do some starting 11s as well. So, Mark, I'm going to start with you for that one.
Score prediction. Oh, crikey. My heart says. My heart says 2-1.
Oh, okay.
My head says 1 each. One each,
Okay.
2-1. But I'm hoping that it's obviously with 2-1. If it's 2, let's go with a 2-1, shall we? And if it is 2-1, I'm going to go with first goal for Shelby. And who else are we going to go with? Gibbs White.
Okay.
Shelby
What
Gibbs
is your
White, the scorers?
So what is your? Who do you think will start? What's your squad that you would play against Wolves?
Well, we don't know what's happened with Aurier, do we? We don't know if he's injured or if he's going to be fit. Let's presume he's fit. Him at right back, Lodi at left back, Felipe and got to give Nia Carter a game because obviously he's been involved with his national team. He's had his first, so he's going to be on a big high. You know, it'd be disappointing with that the other week, but I mean, look, that's just one of those things. And then I think we would have to go. I think we then got to go Yatesy. If Yatesy sounds like he hasn't got a bad injury, so if Yatesy's fit, Shelby and Freuler. And do I go with Freuler? The trouble is, they say Freuler's a little bit too like Shelby, don't they? Or they play the same sort of areas. So let's go Mangala then. Let's go because Mangala coming on for Belgium as well. Because of him coming on for Belgium, let's go Mangala. So that would be the 3, and then obviously the up front, we presume Brennan's going to be fit. Morgan and I don't know if Taiwo would play. I don't know. I don't think he will. I think he will come off the bench really. So maybe give Sam a start. Go with that. I mean, I don't know who else Chris Wood obviously isn't fit. I don't know who else we could put
Dennis?
up there.
Would you go for Dennis?
I heard you say, yeah, maybe Dennis, because I think Dennis done really. I quite thought, yeah, I think Dennis would have to be. I didn't think of Dennis. Yeah, so maybe go with that. Maybe go with that front 3 again. Maybe go with them guys, just alternating or whatever. See how they get on, and with Surridge and Taiwo maybe being on the bench to come on.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously we're playing with a false 9, if you like, quite a lot this season. I think a lot of Prem teams are. There's a bit of a shortage of 9s, but so your prediction's going to be, your heart says 2-1, but you're saying 1-1.
My head says 1 each, yeah. But I'd love 2-1. I'll be fantastic, yeah, definitely. But it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. They're a good side, Wolves. I think they're a good side. I know they got beat 4-2 last game, but they had a few send-ins off and a few things went against them. But I still think they're a good side.
They're going to present some real challenge. Now, Rads, finally, what's your score predictions and your scorers?
Well, knowing Forest, if it's a win, it'll probably be a very narrow win. So I think it's a case of head and heart, isn't it? So I think my heart would say 1-0 Forest. I think we can do it at home. You know, it's a game we really need to be winning. With the games we've got coming up, the form we're in, you know, we've only won 1 in 9 now. So, you know, we really need to get 3 points. And, you know, next week's a golden opportunity for it. Wolves are a very good team. And as we saw in the League Cup, you know, it was a good performance from us, but they gave us a real good go. Obviously, they took us to penalties. So I could see it being 1-1 as well. But my final prediction will be 1-0. I'm not being entirely biased. I think that's definitely doable and possible. You know, we've managed to beat harder teams this season at home and get points against harder teams. Goal score, I think you can always say Brennan's going to be a likely opportunity. I think if Dennis plays again, because of how he did very well, I thought, against Newcastle, then maybe, you know, he could get another goal or, you know, a headed goal from a corner maybe. Man of the match is a very tough one to call. I think maybe someone like Felipe or Yates, you know, because if we're gonna keep a clean sheet, the defence is obviously going to be vital to the way we have to play this season. And Felipe has been a vital part of it. But I'd have to back my favourite player, Yatesy.
Okay, well, There's your score predictions, your scorers, your man of the matches, all there here on DoreOnTour this evening. Mark, I just want to thank you for joining, Rads as well. Yes. Really appreciate you both joining and talking with me, and also thank you to you for listening in this evening. It's been great talking about Forest, season tickets, Steve Cooper, survival chances, Ryan Yates. We've covered a lot this evening, and it's been really, really good. So, can Forest turn it around? I believe they can. And I'm going to say that my score prediction for that game would be 1-0, and it's going to be really, really close. But if Forest win against Wolves, I do think they can turn it around. So thank you all for listening this evening. Make sure to get your thoughts in the chat. I'll still be answering them, even if you're saying it after this video. So do ask any questions that you'd like to ask. But from us, from me, Rads and Mark, it is goodbye, good night, take care, and come on you Reds.
See you guys.